Rams.
That's a true story.
So Ed,
doesn't surprise me.
So Ed, coming back to this game, the 49ers. We haven't spoken much about the 49ers in the last couple of weeks. They were the flavour of the time, maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago.
Yep.
They're in good form.
Well, they lost that game to the Rams in overtime, and I think that got everyone kind of what's going on here. But again, that was that Kaepernick fumble when they called that, which I think was a terrible play. That option play,
it was very
inside the 20, fumbled.
They debated it a long time. The commentators,
not
didn't
a great call. So I mean, I you kind of put that one to the side if you can, but keeping in mind that this is a young quarterback who's still in his 4th or 5th start or however many it's been. So I think there's still some room for them to go either up or down, whereas with New England, you know what you're going to get. You've got Tom Brady. He's going to do his little dump-off passes. They're going to play some decent defense, but that's what you're going to get.
I like the Pats. I think the Pats are a good bet. In fact, I like them at the minus. I think the 4.5, you could back them at the minus. I'm just wondering, this Alex Smith-Kaepernick kind of debate, where's the dust settled right now? Like, if you took a snapshot right now, are we thinking this has been a good change?
It's a great question. I think it is. I don't think they're anywhere better with Alex Smith.
Yep.
And I do think Kaepernick has the bigger upside in terms of making the big plays and that sort of thing. But, it's still a risk.
We'll move on to the next game. It's the Jets-Titans game, only because it's being televised live on ESPN at 12:30 on Tuesday. The Jets, as we said, they're playing off for a wild card, so they're still alive here, which is extraordinary.
Yeah.
They're $2.08. Tennessee Titans are $1.78. The line there is 1.5, and the overs and unders is 41.5 points.
Pass. I got no idea.
It will be it's an interesting game. The Titans have been, I said probably 6-7 weeks ago, the Titans are one of the most inconsistent teams in the league. They've been up and down. They've won some games that they had no business winning. They've lost some games they probably should have won. So which Titans team's going to show up? I don't know. Are they still playing hard? I think so. The Jets need the win, but the Jets are, they're not a great team. They're just somehow finding a way to win. What was it? Last week it was 7-6, and then last week 17-10. So they're just sneaking through against bad teams. But again, you win in the National Football League, you win. A win's a win.
Sorry, keep going.
I was just going to go one more game. I was going to go the Giants game against the Falcons here. The Giants are $2.08. They go to Atlanta, $1.78. The line there is 1.5, 51 points, the overs and unders.
Lost a bit of momentum in the Giants, haven't they?
Well, not after last week. They thumped the Saints.
Yeah, but it was the Saints. I mean,
powered them. Powered over.
They've had a horrible year, the Saints, except there was a couple of weeks there.
We thought they were getting back into it.
They were getting back to the Saints of old, but
well, they lost to the Redskins in that close game and came back. Prior to that, they thumped the Packers, lost to the Redskins, close game, and then thumped the Saints. So they're hanging in there. Again, at the end, the Giants. You know what you're going to get from the Giants. You're going to get that effort. They're occasionally going to lay an egg and play a bad game. But I like the Giants here. I know Atlanta's got a rebound. They're playing at home, but I still think this is one that the Giants can win. And they've got Dallas. Don't forget, chipping at their heels and the Redskins, so they've got to keep winning as well. So I like them in that, but I'm not sure I'd put my money on them as well. What was the line on that one again?
It was 1.5. It was 1.5.
Yeah, tight one.
I want to time capsule two things, guys. You both get a selection here. I want to time capsule the Rookie of the Year and the MVP. Rookie of the Year is going to be RG3 or Andrew Luck. Yeah. You both get a pick here. And we're going to put in the time capsule and we'll discuss it when it comes out.
I'll go with Luck.
I'm going with RG3 because I just think they're in trouble now, Indianapolis. Injuries are going to catch up with them, and Luck may not get too much protection over the next 2 or 3 weeks, and that may be the difference in the end. So I'll go RG3, but it's a pity because they've had two fantastic rookie years.
Yeah, I agree.
So you've gone Luck, you've gone RG3, and then for the MVP, the three that we've got in contention here are Peyton Manning, Tom Brady, and Adrian Peterson.
Well, I'm going to go away from the quarterbacks and go for Peterson because he's just dazzling.
It's a good choice.
He is dazzling.
And he's come back from that injury, that debilitating injury, which is great. Brady could win it every year. I mean, I'm a huge Brady fan. I just think I'll throw a vote in for Manning just because he's changed a team around. He's turned a team around that was a battling team last year and has got them in a position where they could do some damage in the postseason. So I will go with Manning. But again, any of those selections are good selections.
This is Betstars and Stripes. Plenty of SMSs that we'll get to. We've still got studs and duds to come. We'll discuss some of the big issues of the week. Maybe take a look at a couple of the NBA games coming up as well. Betstars and Stripes for Betstar, home of US sport in Australia. And to celebrate, they have $2 power lines on all NFL games from 4 p.m. every Sunday. Head to betstar.com.au or betstar.mobi to check.
This is Bet Stars and Stripes with Dr. Turf, Ed Wyatt and Alice Gander.
14 minutes to 9 o'clock. Betstars and Stripes for Betstar. Take on a Betstar at betstar.com.au. A lot of SMSs coming through. We have got studs and duds also to look at in just a moment. The Perth Scorchers are none for 8 in the second over, chasing 114 for victory. England are 3 for 118 off 61 overs, 15 overs left in the day. They lead by 122 runs with 7 wickets in hand against India in the fourth test with 1 day to play. Some SMSs coming through to us here. England have crawled along in that, by the way. 61 overs for 118. So.
Well, they can't be playing for a draw, England.
Well, Alistair Cook was 13 off 97.
I suppose they could be. They're 2-1 up, aren't they?
Yeah, so it's a pretty difficult wicket to score on, but yeah, you'd want to make sure.
Is that thing actually called a wicket? I tell you what, it's been fascinating to look at that whole situation. Amazing, yeah.
Dust bowl. Off the SMS, any speculation they tank in the lead up to playoffs? Just a little bit of almost professional list management, I guess.
There's a bit of it, yeah. I mean, I think it's harder to do in the National Football League. You don't have massive rosters like in the NBA. You could sit a guy down pretty easily. But look, I think there is probably some evidence that teams maybe don't play as hard. I mean, I would suggest Arizona last week didn't necessarily tank, but they certainly weren't all in, if you know what I mean, losing 58-0. So I think, I think there are ways that happens. I'm not saying the coach goes in and says, we're going to tank guys, but I think sometimes guys go out there and they're not exactly mentally ready to go.
Now, there's been a lot of discussion already on the program about Rookie of the Year and MVP and all that sort of stuff, but for the benefit of Brad from South Yarra, who just SMS'd in saying, who's the MVP, Adrian Peterson or Peyton Manning, both remarkable comebacks.
Or Brady, we talked about that.
Benny Bentley.
Yeah, both of those guys, and throw Tom Brady into the equation. Not sure if there's anyone else who we should be bringing into the discussion, but it's a tight one. It's close, guys, and always gets back to that discussion, too, is what is valuable, and blah, blah, blah. If Brady wasn't there, the team wouldn't do anything, but if Peterson wasn't there, the Vikings could still probably win some games. That old argument,
I think Manning
can be tedious.
Manning makes a good story as well for
the
NFL, I reckon.
Very true.
He's an elder statesman. He's obviously revered in terms of his ability and success. And I just think from an NFL point of view, I think they'd want Manning to win it. It'd just be an amazing story. He's been out of the game for a year, serious neck injuries, goes to a new team.
He's well liked. Yeah. In NFL, dad played in the NFL, brother plays. Yeah, I think that's true.
I want to be on Manning.
Brett Favre coming back next year?
Brett Favre, remember that was the biggest saga. I tell you what, there's never been anything like that.
He's not playing, is he? You got to check every week to make sure he's not playing.
There was that time where he was like, he's coming back, he's not. It was unbelievable.
What's happened to Jeremy Lin? Is he playing?
I just read a big article about Lin, and his stats are way down, obviously, but I heard some people talking, saying the team sort of have figured out what he's doing, and he's sort of just basically an okay point guard in the NBA. But look, he's not in New York. He's not on the stage anymore. The team's different. I haven't watched, we certainly haven't seen the games the way we saw them last year. They're not exactly blasting Houston Rockets games on ESPN these days. So, change of scenery, and I think probably, he hit that golden patch for a while and then sort of is fading back to what he probably is, a pretty solid, decent point guard.
Off the SMS, more of a call for help from listeners or whoever may have the answer. Matt in Kilsyth asks, I'm looking to find a copy of the Hakeem Olajuwon book, Living the Dream. I think that's what it's called. He was by far my favourite NBA player, and I still love Houston, even named my dog Houston. Does anyone know where I can get that without jumping on Amazon? So if
I was going to say Amazon's the easier. There is Melbourne Sports Books that used to be in the city, and now I think he moved it out.
It was on Flinders Street.
Yes, I spoke with the guy that runs that, Santo, and I believe he told me that he's over in Brunswick or somewhere now. But look online, Melbourne Sports Books. He has some great stuff down there. So that would be, without going on the internet, that would be the place to look.
The other thing I think we should really touch on before you get to some more SMSs, Darren, is going to be the NHL as well. I think their negotiations just failed, and they're about to go into the court. So this season is not looking any closer to a start. I think they're about to go to court. I think they've got suits against each other. I think the NHL's got a suit against the Players Association or whatever they call themselves.
It's that thing where this whole thing, and I'm not a lawyer, I don't even pretend to be one, but it's if the union decertifies, the league cannot lock them out, because the union doesn't exist. So they're going to break up the union so the league can't lock them out, and then that opens room for lawsuits and, more importantly, the monopoly issue, the players saying you're not letting us, a free trade type thing. So it's all negotiation and ridiculous situation. 43% of games have already been canceled.
So I mean, that's all confusing to me. All that tells me is they are no closer to getting on the ice.
Correct. Yeah. You're absolutely right. I mean, the only thing I can see is them coming back and just the goodwill of the fans, and the fact that fans are so going to miss their hockey so much that they might get something done in March or April and play a really short season and zip into a playoff situation early. But
so they haven't put a deadline on, if we don't get a game by this time, the season's done?
No, they haven't said that yet. No drop dead date, as they call it. But through December 30th, no games.
Wow.
Well, given the fans' right, once the Stanley Cup's been decided, how come they haven't rioted yet?
I'm disappointed.
They only riot when they win. Didn't you know that? That's North American sports. They win, they riot. It makes absolutely no sense at all.
How great a capacity would they have to survive this a second time, given they've survived it once?
Well, they think they do. And I think they think, and I know we've discussed it on this program before, but I think they are emboldened by that. And I think part of that is, and this might sound strange, but hockey fans are a lot like footy fans. They just want to see their sport. They love their sport passionately. And I actually think if there were some sort of issue here where there was a strike or a work stoppage in the AFL, I don't think there will be, but I think if there was, I think initially people would be angry and upset, but I think eventually they'd come around and the support would not drop off as much as you might think it would. Now, I may be wrong about that, but I do think that's what they're looking at in terms of hockey. They think these fans are coming back. And when you look at some of the fans with Buffalo, Montreal, Toronto, I mean, a lot of Canadian places, a lot of places that don't have a lot of success in other sports, St. Louis, these are markets that really are good markets, and I think people will come back, and I think that emboldens Gary Bettman and the owners to push this to the extreme. I don't like it. I can't stand it. I think it's horrible what they've done, considering Gary Bettman said, we got it right. That was his big quote after the last lockout, and they came back together, and he went, well, we finally got it right. We have 5 years later. What happened to getting it right? Now they're going back on it again. So it's a bad situation.
Speaking of cities, any talk of any NFL teams shifting town?
London.
Raiders?
Raiders, no, Raiders aren't going to go anywhere. Chargers is the one to keep an eye on. Chargers is the one because they've got some stadium issues, and they potentially could be a team that might move to LA if there's and LA gets its stadium act together.
Why did LA lose a team?
Stadiums were an issue. Other places gave them better opportunity to, there was that era where, you get a better stadium, you get more luxury suites and things like that, more money. That's normally what it is. And LA's never got a really stadium together. The Coliseum is crumbling. It's old. You can't really put an NFL team in there. So they really do need a new stadium.
There's always the fight between who pays for it. Is it the government? Is it the people?
That's a huge issue.
The owners?
That's a huge issue. In fact, you mentioned the hockey. Detroit is now pushing for a new arena. The Detroit owner, who's Mike Ilitch, who I think owned Domino's Pizza or Little Caesars, one of those, billionaire, and he's expecting the city of Detroit to pay for the majority of this new building while they're locking out the players. I just find that extraordinary. Extraordinary.
Who paid for Cowboy Stadium?
I think Jerry paid a fair bit of that. Jerry Jones.
$4 billion.
I think he paid a fair whack of that one.
None other than Jimmy Barnes running messages out to the Sydney Sixers at the moment, if you can believe that.
Of course.
Makes perfect sense wearing Brett Lee's number 58. But before we get to more of these SMSs, it's time for Studs and Duds. Always a good segment as part of Betstars and Stripes, where we look at those that have had the standout performances and those that have let themselves down. We'll start off with the Studs of the week, Ed.
David Wilson, running back for the Giants, he set a team single-game record for all-purpose yards, 327, returned a kickoff 97 yards for a touchdown, rushed for 100 yards with a couple of touchdowns in that big win. And the great thing about David Wilson is he's had some fumbling problems, and Tom Coughlin's basically said, you're on the bench till you can prove that you can't fumble.